don't know, she has every other Wednesday. Oh no, she moved it to Tuesday. It's a problem for me now because it was on Wednesday last year, and she's moved it to Tuesday this year. So I probably won't be able to go because I work Tuesday. But
yeah,
she invites all of them to go to the movies. So you go to like a 10:30, 11 a.m. movie, and usually there's like 7, 8 of us. The old principal that you know well, Ted Vernon,
yep.
He comes quite a bit, and Linda Whitford, who is right behind Martha as being a person who has supported everything over the years at Grandview. So, yeah, Martha's a one of a kind person. You know,
I mean, I know. I mean, I remember having her for the high level math classes. My junior senior year, and just another person that was very demanding, but you also knew, like, if I got a problem, I can go to her.
Yeah.
And she's going to work with me, and we're going to figure it out.
And with her, if the problem is with somebody higher than you, she's not afraid to go to anybody and get the problem solved. So
those are probably two of my toughest teachers, but I think I learned the most from them. Miss Stevenson took my Walkman away from me probably about once a week, so I knew her pretty well.
Yeah. It's kind of like the old saying, the harder you try, the harder it is to surrender. The person that demands the most from you really believes in you, ultimately. You might see it as a young person, well, they're just being hard on me, but, as you get older, you kind of realize, like, no, they really saw this potential and knew that I could do bigger things than even I thought. And so, that's another person I know that is, near and dear to you and to the Grandview community.
Yeah.
Been doing it for a long time.
She was put in the Hall of Fame 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So she's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Miss Stevenson was?
Yeah. They have it's player, coach, and then there's a area called contributor. So she was put in as a contributor.
Yeah,
cool.
And that's a well-deserved spot for her as well. I mean, she did a lot over the years. Well-deserved spot for you, winningest coach in Grandview history. And then, you like you said, you went down to Central for a few years. You were really just kind of done teaching. And as a person who's, taught and done it for a lot less years than you, it is tough every day, that grind.
It is.
Over the years.
That's why, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Blake Little, who's the head basketball coach at Lee Summit that I work with, he was also Teacher of the Year in the Lee Summit School District. And he made it to the state semifinals, Teacher of the Year.
Oh, wow.
So those of us who have done both, I mean, that's – and I sub for – he's got all the upper level history classes, and I sub for him sometimes. And he's just got those kids are just, great. And so, shout out to him because we're talking about how hard it is to teach and coach, and he hasn't mastered. He's doing a pretty good job both things. So.
Yeah, I would say if he, if he made it to state semifinals in basketball, in Teacher of the Year, that's a pretty big honor.
Yeah.
For him as well. So Alec, let's talk a little bit about him. Obviously probably the most recognizable name that we'll throw out. That people have heard of, Alec Burks. You guys made it to the state championship game that year. Got the runner-up there in Columbia. Talk a little bit about Alec as a high school kid and just kind of how you saw his transition and when you knew he was special.
I knew he was special his junior year. We're playing at home against Lee Summit West, and they were playing man-to-man, and then they changed into a zone. And the very first possession they had zone, Alec caught the ball on the wing and split the forward and the guard on the side of the zone, split them, and went in and just dunked it right down on the center. and Alec had some like breakaway dunks at that point and this and that. When he did that, it was like we're at a different level.
Yeah.
And then his whole senior year, very high level. A lot of my coaching friends that coach at other schools, because we didn't just have Alec, but what they said was it isn't fair because we really simplified our offense, because basically what we did is we came down and we got into a high-low on this, and we had the ball on the side opposite Alec. So Alec's man was either going to help on the high-low, or Alec was going to shoot a three.
Yeah.
Does that sound like really, complex offense?
Yeah.
But I've had several coaches say it just wasn't fair.
Yeah, because you guys had a really good center that year,
well,
too.
Quantel Denson was
Yeah.
6'9", and you're either going to give him a dunk, or you're going to help on the dunk, and then Alex is going to,
Yeah.
So it was Alec. I just said Alex. Alec. It made things pretty simple, but we weren't trying to get it into a half court game anyway, because we were pressing the whole time trying to get it up and down. The thing about Alec is he was about my height his senior year, and I don't know exactly what he weighed, but 180 maybe.
Yeah.
Alec is 6'6", 230 now, and it's all muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody grows that much after high school, but he did. I've got a picture. I don't think I have it on my phone. I have it on my computer. Alec and Ronnie Boggs came back and visited when I did some subbing. I subbed for they had an American history when I was coaching at Central. They had 1 hour of American history that they didn't have covered, so I would go in and take that. I took it for a whole year. And so, but I was basically a sub. But they came in, visited me one in class, and I went out in the hall. Martha Stevenson took the picture. She came up there with them. By this time, this is like Alec's third year in the NBA, I guess. He was still at Utah, but and we take the picture, and I got to looking at it later. And not only is Alec 4 inches taller than me, and I'm not a small person.
Yeah.
And you watch NBA games and you look out there and do this for yourself when he's playing for Golden State. You get him out there and he still looks like a skinny little kid when he's in an NBA game. His shoulders are wider than mine. I have photographical evidence of that.
Yeah.
In the picture, and I keep looking at that and I'm like, holy cow. And when people ask about the NBA, I've always said this, is that you have no idea of the size and the speed and the talent of the game in the NBA, because it looks like easy, it looks like people are loafing, it looks like this, it looks that, but it's not that. It's these guys that are crazy at what they do, and so that's what's happened with Alec. And then he hasn't been in the best of situations. A lot of the coaches he's played for, he's played for 3 different teams now, and now he's going to his 4th. They've run half court sets, and Golden State runs half court sets too, but they spread everything out so far and everything.
Yeah.
If they spread it out and Alec gets to drive, then you'll see a show, because he'll finish.
Yeah.
He's had that. I'm sure you guys have seen over the last 3 or 4 years. Every once in a while you see Alec with just a thunderous finish with a dunk at the end, but you just see it every once in a while. I think we're about to see it more often when he's playing for Golden State. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with him being a Grandview guy, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I've always kind of followed his career, and always check out his highlights. And yeah, I mean, there have been those opportunities where he's, really went in there and you're like, man, this kid can play.
Well, see, the other thing about Golden State is on the other team's scouting report,
yeah,
Alec is probably the 7th guy they're worried about. Well, if you quit worrying about him, he's about getting ready to do something that you're not going to like if you quit worrying about him. So
yeah.
I'm anxious to see how that looks.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to Coach Hare this week, our basketball coach at East, and we were talking. I told him you were coming on the show, and he was. I guess they went to. I think he said they made it to the Final Four in state or something that year too in Kansas. Mm-hmm. And they were playing in the Hy-Vee shootout, and the guys that called them and were trying to set the matchups and everything, and they're like, well, who do you want to play? And he said, I don't want to play Grandview. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that Burks kid in that center. I don't want to see those guys. So
yeah. Well, the matchup, Chaminade had Bradley Beal.
Yeah, they had some pretty good dudes too.
And they were all great athletes, but they played zone, and that slowed us down. And then they had this kid named Lockhart who ended up. He was a D2 player. He started for 4 years at Drury. That was their point guard. Mm-hmm. So between Beal and Lockhart, we couldn't speed them up on the press. We couldn't turn them over, and so we had to grind it out against the zone. And that's more power to Coach Lee, their coach. More power to him, because that's if you had the big studs inside to play the zone against us, which they did. That was that was an unfortunate game, because we basically the entire year we dictate. Well, we had one loss in the Blue Springs tournament to Park Hill South, but except for that hiccup, we dictated the game to everybody else and we sped them up and made them play. But we couldn't do that in that final game.
Yeah, so. I remember coming to watch a handful of games in the regular season, and then went down to Columbia for the championship game, and it was just it was a different tempo than I had even seen in the games I went to for you guys, which is always tough. So that was hard, but
I've gone back and looked at that game a few times, obviously, and with them controlling the tempo, we still made some errors along the way that if we would have cleaned them up, that we'd have still been there. But it was a great season.
Yeah, it was.
There's still, and like I said, there's still people that want me to. They want me to sit down and like draw out our press, which you cannot do, because it's not. It's not it's how you play more so than what you do, and so it takes a while.
Yeah.
And we're doing it gradually. We're doing it more and more at Lee Summit, and we've got some good athletes in both of our sophomore and junior classes, and so that's so.
Yeah, and this is your third year over there?
Yeah,
third year. Okay. So how does this season look for you guys coming up?
We were in a kind of a going young last year, and now the youngsters are a year older. But I've been through this at Grandview like 4 or 5 times, where you bring those classes through, and this year will be good, but we will really have talent stacked up next year. But this year will be good, and we'll be better. We play in Staley is going to be really good. Liberty has got a senior group, so we play in a conference that's going to be tough. But I've got high hopes for this year, and because we're young, but we're in the next stage of it. This is the type of team that gets better the whole season, and then in March we should be ready.
Yeah,
ready to take another step. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I feel like we are with our football team at Charleston East this year. Last year was a heavy senior class, lost a bunch of guys. This is my 5th year there. This is the team that can improve the most from week 1 to week 10. Whereas in years past I felt like we were really good coming in, and there's not a lot of you're going to improve as you go, but not a lot of room for improvement. This group, I really feel like, because they're young guys, we got a chance to build some momentum here. And so it sounds like you're in a similar situation.
Yep.
Got to ask you about some, the legendary Bud Lathrop over at Raytown South. You guys had some battles over the years. How were some of those basketball games and coaching against him? And
well, that was kind of what we were just talking about. He was always trying to control the tempo, and I was always trying to speed it up. I think I looked this up one time. I think I had 5 wins against Bud Lathrop. Now, that's usually, against most people, that's not something to brag about, but how many have you had?
Yeah.
So that would probably mean my record was probably something like 5-15 against him. But once we got it going, we always played them tough. We were always on their level, and it was always good to play them. Now the Ray South Grandview rivalry is just as hot as it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that game back then where there was the bomb threat, and we were playing over. Were you still in school then, or had you?
No, I think that was right
it
after
was
I left.
Chucky Love, because I remember Chuck Love, that he's the guy who is the women's assistant basketball coach at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
His mom wasn't going to let him play. And we all didn't have cell phones then, but somebody in the crowd had a flip phone, and we're warming up, And Chucky dressed out because he was just going to sit on the bench because his mom didn't want him to play because she's afraid somebody was going to shoot him from the stands or something.